Guys, Alexander Zverev just defeated Rafael Nadal 3-0 in the first round. Yes, you heard it right, in the first round of the 2024 French Open. Now, I think Nadal, this was his best match in the past 2 years. I think he may have beaten some top 10 guys today. I mean, borderline top 10 players like Taylor Fritz. I think Nadal would have gotten him. Like, I'm not really sure if it would have gone to 5 sets, because I don't think that Nadal currently has that cardio. But in 3 sets with the crowd, I think Nadal would have gotten some guys there. But he ran into Alexander Zverev, the arguably most informed guy currently on the ATP Tour. And Zverev, especially his backhand was ridiculously good today. Was just too much for Rafa, even for his banana forehand, which was sort of surprising, because going into the match, I was kind of thinking, well, yeah, what does Nadal in 2024 do better than Zverev? Like, he probably has a better mental strength game. He probably has better strategy, more experience, crowd behind him, maybe momentum. But otherwise, when it comes to pure tennis shots, Zverev obviously has a better serve. He obviously has a better backhand. He obviously has more cardio, better movement. And then maybe forehand, like maybe Nadal has still a better forehand, but Zverev was able to tame his forehand with his backhand. That was really surprising to me. And the other thing I immediately thought of is that the flow of the match and the score basically for 2 sets was exactly the same as Federer versus Hurkacz in 2021 when it comes to Federer's last match at Wimbledon, of course, and his overall career. The first set was kind of like a nothing 6-3, like Zverev was just the better player, like Hurkacz was just the better player versus Federer. And then Federer got a break in the second set versus Hurkacz, same as Nadal getting a break versus Zverev in the second set, and it was actually really close to go to the completely other way, because Zverev had a 15-40 2-1 lead in the second set, but Nadal started playing well, got the crowd behind him, and made a couple of ridiculous shots, and he was up a break. But Zverev broke back at 5-4. And then in the tiebreak, it was sort of kind of a nervy tiebreak. I don't think that Nadal played that well. I don't even think Zverev played that well. But overall, it always felt like it was an uphill battle for Rafael Nadal. He just did not have a consistent weapon versus Alexander Zverev. He hit a couple of good serves in key moments, but overall Zverev was returning really well. His forehand, I mean, Nadal, I don't know, he just couldn't get past Zverev. Actually, I was surprised by Nadal's backhand, which was really sharp at some points, especially the cross-court one. Yes, he missed some shots, but he was actually able to do some damage to Zverev's forehand when it comes to his cross-court backhand. But overall, when the second set was over, it felt like, yeah, this is done and dusted. You were just kind of waiting for the final score when it comes to the third set, and it wasn't a bagel like Federer versus Hurkacz was, because Zverev actually missed an early opportunity. It was 15-40. He missed an approach shot forehand, and then Nadal kind of got some momentum and Zverev started playing poorly, so Nadal went up 2-0. But Zverev won the last 6 out of 7 games. Arguably, I mean, I don't think that Nadal had a smooth serve game at all when it comes to the third set, and the break he got over Zverev, it was 30-40, and Zverev just missed. I mean, he didn't miss, he just played it right on I spat on the camera. He played it right on Rafael Nadal's racket for a beautiful passing shot. Overall, I feel like so I'm a Novak fan, obviously, and going into the match, I was thinking about, do I have to cheer for Nadal here? Because it was quite obvious for me that Zverev is a bigger threat to Novak than Nadal. I just didn't see Nadal beating Zverev today, and even if he did, he's just not the same player. Yes, he played by far the best match in the past 2 years, but it's just a borderline top 10 player with a crowd behind him. It's nothing remotely close to prime Rafael Nadal. And Zverev's playing really well. And Zverev can be so annoying. Maybe I have some PTSD from the Olympic Games from 2021 when Zverev just randomly turned in the God mode and Novak couldn't win a game versus Zverev, starting from somewhere in the midpoint of the second set when Zverev got broken. Zverev was just playing ridiculously well. And I thought to myself, really, I have to cheer for Rafael Nadal here? But what made this match great, what made this atmosphere great, is the fact that it was the classical, typical good guy versus bad guy match. If you didn't follow the draw, For some reason, I'm not really sure how does the draw work when it comes to specifics. But Rafael Nadal ended up being in a 50-50 situation. Will he play the third seed Carlos Alcaraz, or will he play the fourth seed Alexander Zverev? And when I found out, I was actually really happy that he got Alexander Zverev, because playing Alcaraz, yes, in a way, that would have been a passing the torch moment, all Spanish match, blah, blah, blah. But it's just weird because the crowd would still cheer for Nadal because he's a 14-time champion. He may never play again, etc. But then Alcaraz is just this cool, beloved guy who wouldn't hurt a fly. Like, I'm not an Alcaraz fan right now because I'm a Novak fan. But when he retires, when they're not rivals, even I will be a Carlitos fan, I think, in my opinion. I like him way more than, for example, Yannick Sinner. And it's just it would have been a really weird vibe. Like, that crowd would have been against Alcaraz. Like, how would Alcaraz deal with that? That would have been just, I mean, just really weird. And what I'm trying to say without the stuttering is that what sells sporting events, what sells fights in a way, is the typical good guy versus bad guy. Like, just think about WWE. Like, if two good guys are fighting, it's just kind of like cringe. The atmosphere is just not there. The vibe is just not there. Like, one good guy will have to be sort of a bad guy, and that would have had to be in Carlos Alcaraz in this case. And it just doesn't work. The best fights are always good guys versus bad guys. And obviously we know why Alexander Zverev is not beloved. And I think that made the match great, the atmosphere great, because there were some people that were saying that Zverev should not even be playing in this tournament. He should not be even allowed to play this tournament. And, you know, that made it great, because there was Rafa fans and there was neutrals that had like emotion, that were emotionally invested in this match. That's what I'm trying to say. You spent your round one Monday afternoon watching Rafael Nadal being an underdog versus this guy that you hate. And you were emotionally invested for 3+ hours. And that doesn't happen on Grand Slams. That doesn't happen on day 2 when it comes to Grand Slams. That often doesn't even happen on day 15 when it comes to Grand Slams. So that's why I think we sort of got fortunate or lucky with this draw. Now, if Nadal would have gotten like a random, I think he would have beaten him. Like, he was certainly disappointed after the Hurkacz match, because Hurkacz kicked his ass and Nadal wasn't playing well. Nadal played much better today, which is a different opponent. If he would have gotten an unseeded player, I think he would have beaten him today. If he would have gotten like the world number 24, I think he would have beaten him today. Like I said, if he would have gotten somebody like a Taylor Fritz, I think depends on his cardio. He would have his shots, his chances. But against Zverev, yeah. So he can go home thinking that I played one of the best players right now and I lost in 3 sets. Arguably one set I could have won. So what does that tell you? Am I like a borderline top 10 player right now? Could I come back next year? I don't know. So the thing that Nadal has to do, if he wants to be competitive in 2025, is to keep playing tournaments, because he cannot go into Roland Garros being unseeded. Now, in a weird way, people were complaining about his draw, but when you actually think about it, if he would have beaten Zverev today, he would have gotten his draw. So that means he would have gotten an unseeded player in round 2. And I forgot who was the round 3 matchup, but it was somebody from 24 to 32. So his draw would be actually really good until maybe the quarterfinals. I think he would have gotten Rune or somebody like that. And then, of course, maybe Djokovic. So Rafa needs to keep playing, get himself seeded. Like, he won't play a lot of tournaments, and of course, grass season, he may skip that. But he needs to try to win some points at Canada, Cincinnati, US Open, get himself seeded, because he doesn't defend anything until, well, the next clay season, and hope for a better draw. I don't think that being seeded from 24 to 32 will do it, because he'll run into somebody like Zverev in the 3rd round next year, if he plays, if he's still around. So he arguably has to get himself around in the top 10, maybe top 15, which would be a difficult task, but it's not impossible if he keeps playing. Now, obviously, Nadal always plays the best tennis at French Open, so maybe it's unrealistic to expect this level from Rafael Nadal at, I don't know, US Open if he plays. But we'll see. we'll see what happens. Another thing that I was thinking about, like, he may play the Olympics, and I think that format would have suited him better because it's a best of three. And I'm not saying he's winning the Olympics. I'm not saying he's a favorite. But when Zverev went up 2-0, you kind of thought to yourself, well, Nadal is not winning a 5 hour, 30-minute match. And at the Olympics, you cannot play 5 hours and 30 minutes. So, yeah, I think Nadal maybe can try to play at the Olympics. Maybe he gets a decent draw. Maybe he gets a couple of wins. The crowd will be behind him, and certainly it will be an interesting decision. And maybe he plays doubles with Carlos Alcaraz. So those are my thoughts. I was actually pleasantly surprised with Rafa's level, but I was also pleasantly surprised by Zverev's level. Zverev, besides a couple of lulls and downswings, I think the beginning of the third set was kind of weak from Zverev. He really should have he really should have beaten Nadal 6-1 in the third set. But anyways, he played really impressive tennis. The hold was impressive on 4-3, 15-30, 15-40 in the third set, and that was the last shot for Nadal. I think he missed the backhand. Yeah, Nadal missed the backhand on 15-40, and that was it. Zverev just closed the match, and so those were my thoughts, and thank you very much for listening.